Alright, so time to roll a dice differential for the last phase of this turn. Dice differential is pretty big, it's 5 with the initiative to the rebels. So from the southern point of view, a 5 activation turn is pretty unfortunate. The only bright side, the only upshot to this is that the North is forced to attack something in Virginia, but that's not going to be too difficult for the North to pull off. They probably would be motivated to do that anyway, especially if they can get something going down here around Staunton. So what the South really wants to do is try to make that as painful a process as possible. They don't really have a lot of places where they can act offensively, but there are a few places of concern. One of them, of course, is southwest Missouri around Springfield, where Price could try to run away, or that 1 SP stack could try to sneak past Curtis without being intercepted up into Springfield. But odds are that if they were intercepted, they would be absolutely obliterated, and there's a good chance that they will be intercepted. It's really not worth the risk, and Price's chances are really best if he just sits tight in his entrenchments in Springfield. So for the time being, it's best to just leave him there. Johnston is, of course, worried about Halleck. As far as I understand the rules, Halleck wouldn't have any negative consequence to attacking across New Madrid, except that he would be attacking from a marsh hex. The river there in New Madrid, something of a special case, is no particular impediment to attacking Johnston. Other things he could do, again, that 1 SP is really better by what it could do than anything that it could particularly do this turn, just by its threat of being there and being mobile and moving into southeastern Missouri if the opportunity presented itself. Something that would be nice to do would be to either entrench these 2 SPs in Proctorville or get them over to Ship Island. And I think we're going to play a little safe here and entrench them in Proctorville. So that's going to be 1 of 5 activations. It's going to be hard to find 5 activations, but most of them are going to be defensive in character. Any other movements that could be made are probably all going to concern the Eastern Theater. Now, one of the things that happens is Beauregard will fortify in Alexandria, because we know the Army of the Potomac is very likely to come across. We're going to steal 1 SP from J. Johnston's stack, which is actually going to have the effect of also demoralizing Beauregard's troops. But it doesn't matter too much, because at the end of the turn, that demoralization will automatically disappear, and we weren't planning on using him to attack this turn anyway. So, no problem. So we've used 3 activations. We've fortified troops in Proctorville, Louisiana. We fortified Beauregard in Alexandria, and we shipped him another strength point. So we have 2 more activations, and I think we're going to use both of those for training. We're going to knock our training up from 4 to 6. That'll matter at the end of the turn when we're figuring out how many SPs the Southerners were able to recruit this turn. The South, though, isn't done. There's a couple more things that they're going to do. Thinking in the long term, they're going to spend an any card, as if it were an East card, to begin the construction of an F1 fortification in Alexandria, which is really just begging the Army of the Potomac to charge across and attack before that fortification can become complete, because that will have the effect of absorbing a whole SP loss of whoever's sitting there defending that hex. And assuming they're being attacked from across the river, the most SPs at a time that are going to be able to attack them are 3, and the most damage they're ever going to be able to do at a time is 1. So as long as the stack of troops in that fort at least get the tiebreaker, or make the tiebreaker, they're almost unassailable. So one more card we're going to play, because it's very possible that Halleck is going to come down here and smash up Johnston. Johnston's actually not got bad odds if he's on the defensive. So what he's going to do is just sort of invite Halleck to come on through by placing another fortification under construction in his hex. So at the beginning of the next phase, the next rebel phase, they will these fortifications will become complete. So the Union has 1 turn to react if they want to keep these defensive works from being realized. So now the Union's 5 activations, and at least one of them has to be directed towards SPs or a resource hex in Virginia. Now, the Army of the Potomac doesn't really want to attack across into Alexandria because they'll only be able to attack with 3 SPs against Beauregard's 3 SPs, and with all of his die roll modifiers, there's no way the Army of the Potomac could do any better than breaking even. They would like to get there before that fortification got complete and interrupt it, but they can't do that without pushing the Confederate SPs out of Alexandria, which isn't really a possibility now. Similarly, Patterson may win if he attacks, but he's more likely to lose, and if he leaves himself severely weakened, or I don't think he can destroy his entire stack, but he might open up the back door into eastern Maryland, central and eastern Pennsylvania. That's a real can of worms that we don't want to get into. You can start to see how this game sort of captures the feel of the early war, and you maybe empathize with McClellan's cautiousness, perhaps. I'm not sure. So now the northern player needs to satisfy his on to Richmond requirement. There isn't any particularly good place to try this, but the least damaging place if it fails, or the least dangerous place, is for Burnside actually to attack Longstreet, who has a larger force and an entrenched force, and unfortunately the North doesn't have a card to help. But we're going to do this activation first so that, you know, if it succeeds, we can use the other 4 activations to try to take advantage of it, and if it fails, we can use the other 4 activations to try to shore up whatever negative consequences this attack might have. So Burnside's moving 2, 3, Longstreet would be a fool to try to intercept because he would lose his fortification bonus. So then with the 4th movement point, Burnside will move in and attack Longstreet and Staunton. So it's a die roll. The modifiers are going to be +1 for the Union and +3 for the Confederates. McDowell looks on anxiously. Wow, okay, so the Confederates rolled 9 on 4. That's to the Union's 2 on 3. So you can see 9 on 4 is a 2, and then 2 on 3 is an asterisk. So Burnside inflicts no damage and loses 2. So Longstreet did as well as could be hoped. Burnside is outside Staunton with just 1 strength point. It's demoralized. We use our 2nd activation to move McDowell's troops in to reinforce that position. They become demoralized by association. So that's 2 activations. We've satisfied our on to Richmond requirement even though the attack failed, and now we've got 3 more activations to use. One of those activations will be used to take this naval stack and that 1 SP, because we're still limited to 1 SP at a time, down to the Hatteras Inlet. And that will have the effect of dropping the North Atlantic blockade level to 3. With our 4th activation, Curtis will once again try to press into Springfield. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any cards to use, so he'll be rolling with a +1 modifier on the 4 column. Price will be defending with a +3 modifier on the 2 column. He's still better off hanging tight than trying to avoid battle. So let's see if he can hold out here. So the results are that the Union rolled only a 3 on the 4 column, while the Confederates rolled 6 on the 2. So it's something of a mixed result for the Confederates. They hold on to Springfield, but they lose yet another SP. Curtis does as well, but and he becomes demoralized, but you know, in the long run, these sorts of attritional battles are ones that the Union is going to win. For a free naval movement, the Union is going to take this 1 naval SP away from Roanoke Island and bring it up to the Chesapeake Bay box. And for their last activation, there's no clear task for any single stack of SPs. It's tempting to bring Halleck down to challenge Johnston, but it would take 2 activations to get him going, and we'd need a card for that. We don't have it. All of these SPs up here along the northern Kentucky border, we'd rather not move them if we don't have to, and we don't have to because there are reinforcements coming on the next turn. It's a little tempting to move these 2 SPs out of Cincinnati to try to go through West Virginia to reinforce Burnside, but it would still take them like 2, maybe 3 action phases to really get to the action. So it really makes more sense to just keep them there in preparation for moving on Kentucky, and perhaps through Kentucky, then into that eastern edge of, the western edge of Virginia, or perhaps into Tennessee. So I think we'll use this last action point to just bump up the training for the Union by 1. Maybe later on we can cash in with an extra SP. So now in the supply phase, the only thing that happens is these entrenchments disappear in Covington, but they are replaced by Union control. Anytime you entrench a position or fortify a position, it's enough to establish control, even if you lose that entrenchment or fortification, as long as your opponent hasn't reestablished control. So now that takes us to the end phase of turn 2.